Rain was merciless that night, the kind that feels like needles on skin. Marissa could barely see the road ahead, her vision blurry from tears and rain mixing together. Every step sent pain shooting up her legs, but stopping wasn't an option. She held her swollen belly with one hand, trying to protect the tiny life inside her. She had left barefoot, with no coat, no plan, only desperation. Her lip was bleeding, her clothes soaked, and her body trembling from the cold. The storm wasn't the only thing she was running from. Behind her were months of fear, bruises that never had time to heal, and words that cut deeper than any wound. She didn't know where she would end up. The only thought echoing in her mind was keep moving. She wasn't running to save herself anymore. She was running to save her baby. She refused to become another silent story. Blow through the blur of rain and streetlights, a faint glow appeared, neon letters flickering against the storm. Marissa could barely make out the sign, but the moment she reached the door and leaned her weight against it, she knew she had crossed into a completely different world. The noise inside stopped instantly. The music, the pool balls, the low laughter, everything froze. A dozen men turned to stare at her. Big boots, leather jackets, tattoos winding up their arms. These were the kind of men people crossed the street to avoid. She stood there, shivering, drenched from head to toe, her hair stuck to her face. Her voice was barely a whisper as she said, "Please, I just need help." For a moment, no one moved. They didn't know her story, didn't know what she had endured. But the look in her eyes said everything: fear, exhaustion, and a fragile hope that someone, anyone, would care. Sometimes we knock on the scariest doors because kindness hides in unexpected places. Reed was the kind of man people didn't argue with. Broad shoulders, rough voice, a presence that filled the room without him having to say a word. At first, he just watched her, this trembling stranger, dripping rain onto the floor. He wasn't someone who trusted easily. Life had taught him to question everything, especially sudden trouble walking through his door. But when Marissa's knees buckled, Reed stepped forward instinctively. Caught a glimpse of her wrist's dark bruises, fresh marks of someone else's cruelty. Something shifted in his expression. He didn't see a problem entering his bar. He saw a woman fighting to protect a life growing inside her. The room stayed tense, every biker waiting for Reed's command. Then he spoke, steady and low. "Nobody touches her. She stays here tonight." And in that moment, without knowing her past or her future, he chose to be the one safe place she had left. Wrapped in a dry blanket and sitting in a back booth, Marissa finally found the strength to speak. Her hands shook as she tried to hold the cup of water they'd given her. For a few moments, she just stared at it like she was gathering the courage to let the truth out. When her voice finally broke the silence, it was small and fragile. She told them about Carl, the man who promised to love her but slowly turned her world into a prison. How, the moment she became pregnant, his temper grew worse. He isolated her from friends, controlled what she did, where she went, and eventually who she was. The bruises on her wrists were not from a fall, they were from his grip. The cut on her lip wasn't an accident, it was a warning. She tried to leave once before, and he swore he would kill her if she ever tried again. Tonight, she ran anyway. Just before dawn, the rumble of an engine cut through the quiet. Headlights flashed through the rain-streaked windows, and every biker in the room tensed. Reed stood up slowly, his jaw tightening as the front door swung open. A man stumbled inside wild, angry, soaked with rain. "Where is she?" he shouted, chest heaving. "Where's my wife?" Marissa froze in the office, hands instinctively covering her stomach. Reed didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. Hi. He stepped forward, his men forming a wall behind him. "You need to leave," he said calmly. But Carl pushed forward, screaming that she belonged to him. The bikers didn't move. Tanner grabbed his arm, another blocked his path, and within seconds they had him restrained. Someone had already called the police. Blue and red lights flashed outside as officers dragged him away, still yelling. For the first time in a long time, Marissa wasn't running. Someone was fighting for her. Days turned into weeks, and the bar slowly returned to its usual noise music. Laughter, the scrape of chairs, but something had changed. The men who once lived with clenched fists and guarded hearts found themselves checking the front door without realizing it, wondering if she might come back. Reed especially. He never said it out loud, but every night he sat at the same table where she'd thanked him, staring at the empty chair across from him. Bend one afternoon. An envelope arrived, no return address. Just his name written carefully. Inside was a photo. A tiny baby wrapped in a blue blanket, eyes closed, peaceful. On the back, in soft handwriting, Marissa had written, "His name is Hope, because that's what you gave us." Red held that photo longer than anyone else, rough fingers trembling, realizing that in saving her, something inside him had healed too.